Okay. Hello, everybody, all you other truthers out there. This is Ramona at RamonaSpeaks, the Other Truth. And tonight, I want to welcome Joey and Tonya Madia for a spooky Saturday on Ramona Speaks the Other Truth tonight. And if you think you are in a haunted house and want clarification, hey, call Joey and Tonya. They will be on their way. Seriously, though, their book, Roommates from Beyond, How to Live in a Haunted Home, which you can get on Amazon, both paperback and or Kindle Unlimited, tells you just how to do that. So let's welcome veteran paranormal investigators and experiencers, Tonya and Joey Madia, as they share the details of the haunted homes in which they've lived and some of the most interesting and complex cases from their files, interweaving compelling narrative and lets you in on the tools and techniques they've used to investigate and manage a wide variety of hauntings. This special handbook that they have written is designed to help you identify a haunting and protect your home from those unwanted entities, and then come to a peaceful resolution to the haunting phenomena. So, welcome my esteemed guests, the go-to paranormal investigators, Joey and Tonya Madia. The evening is yours.
Thank you so much. You know, we've done this probably 60 or 70 times, Ramona. That was hands down. Wow, we got to hire you as our publicist.
Yes, that was the best intro.
Okay.
That was so cool. Thank you. So, yeah, we're going to, it's a couple weeks before Halloween, and we're going to share with you and your audience some of our spookiest, craziest, weirdest experiences with ghosts and UFOs and things that vanish, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to start us off with that old apartment many years ago?
It was actually a house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So many years ago, this was before I met Joey. This would have been 1995-ish. And I had rented a home. I was a single mom. I had two young boys. My oldest was 10. My youngest was just a little under 2. And so I rented this home, and it was like a tri-level. So it had a below ground basement, like family room, like finished basement kind of family room. Obviously it had a main floor, and then it had an upstairs. So from the moment we moved in, it just kind of one of those situations where you feel like you're being watched, you feel a little bit uneasy, cold spots. The very first night that we were there, I had horrible nightmares. And all night I dreamt that there were like these demonic like entities coming in through the bedroom window. And I had sleep paralysis. It was just a horrible night all night. That was the first night that we were there. And I kind of chalked it up at the time. Now, this was well before I had become a paranormal investigator. I mean, I had been an experiencer since childhood, so I was kind of used to this phenomenon happening, but never anything to this extreme. So I wasn't really quite sure what to do. And I kind of dismissed it. I thought, well, we're in a new place, we're settling in, that kind of thing. Well, as we went on, my oldest son, he had his computer set up in the submerged basement. And he would talk about, he felt like he was being watched. One night from the corner of his eye, he said he saw this like hag, like woman kind of cross across the room. And that really unsettled him. There was another night, I was on the main floor watching television, and just off to the left of where the sofa was a staircase that went down to that basement. And I could hear the boys and my youngest, I kept hearing him say something. I wasn't quite sure what it was. I thought he was playing with his brother, and I kept kind of hearing it. And then all of a sudden I realized what he was saying was, help me. And I thought, wait a minute, I don't don't think he's playing. So I run down the stairs and he's lying face down, completely unable to move. He's right at the bottom of the staircase. He's lying completely face down, unable to move, and barely able to get these words out. Help me, help me. So of course I snatch him up off the floor, and he points up the stairs and he says, "Scary." So that really freaked me out. From that point on, he would stand at the bottom of the staircase and point several times and just say, "Scary." So he was seeing something, and he was so young, he wasn't really able to articulate what it was that he was seeing. The days go by. We did not live there very long. So I don't even know if this was weeks. I think this all kind of culminated within, a month, 6 weeks, something like that. So this red substance started to appear in the corner, like where the wall would meet the ceiling in a couple of the rooms. It just kind of was like bleeding through the paint. So I had no idea what that was. And really the final straw was one afternoon. My oldest son was in school. My younger son was taking a nap, and I was in the bathroom putting makeup on. I think I was getting ready for work or something. And I hear this, and I could feel the breath. It like moved my hair. So I hear this like cackle in my right ear, and I could feel the breath. And I was like, that's it. So I run in the bedroom, I grab my little one up and run down the stairs. And as we ran down the stairs, we moved through something of substance. It was like a cold spot, but it had substance to it. I've never felt anything like it before or since. Now, like I say, back in those days, I wasn't a paranormal investigator. I didn't know what to do. I had no idea how to go about getting to the bottom of what was going on. So I just broke my lease and moved. But I wished that there was a book or there was someone that I could call back then. So I always find it ironic that all these years later, 20 something years later, this is what I do with my husband. So that's one of my earlier experiences, although like I say, I had been having experiences since childhood.
Wow. I mean, evidently it left an impression on you, because here you are 20 years later dealing with that. I can not imagine what that would be like. The only thing I've ever experienced was a visitor, a purple something, with 3 fingers, and that was like last year. For the first time I had a visitor, and it gave me a shock or stuck me with something, and I thought it was the cat. And so I was kicking it, the kitten, and I was saying, "Stop," because I was having a hard time trying to sleep. And it just kept, like sticking my toe, which was out from under the cover because it was hot and everything. And I kept saying, "Stop." And then all of a sudden there was a pain that shot from my toe all the way up to my knee. And I sat up to kick, and I looked, I was like, at the end of the bed, there was this being with this gray, big, round head, and this skinny neck, and this skinny body, and these long arms. And I could see he was looking down at my feet, and then he looked, it was like, it was dark in the room, of course. It was like 4:00 in the morning, and the light was shining behind him, some kind of light, so that I could just see his movement. I couldn't see any features. I just know that he looked up to, as if to say, he tilts his head as if to say, "Oh, you see me. How did you like that?"
Wow.
And I'm still trying to find my voice. I wasn't really scared. I was trying to make sure, am I really seeing this? Mm-hmm. And just at that point where I knew it was there, it started dissipating, like in these gold, violet stardusty like thing until it just dematerialized.
Wow.
That's
And of
a-
course, I got up and I haven't been the same since then. It's only been a little over a year, but trying to explain it away and stuff like that, and finally telling people, because things like that are life altering.
Yes, they
Yes.
are.
Yes.
Mhm.
They're life altering, and you don't know who to go to or anything, you know. So that was my experience. So I identify. Uh, wow,
Wow. Well,
wow.
Wow.
we have one for you from 2009. We wanted to talk about a few other shorter things first, but we never know how people are going to take it when we tell our story. But you are going to understand.
You will understand.
You're going to understand very much so, which will be great. So, so when you were a little girl on Fort Meade, very interestingly, in the 1970s, you had things happen, right? Dolls' heads going missing and coming back.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, the earliest memory I have, I was probably 4 or 5 years old, and I was playing Barbies. And now I do remember it being even younger than that, and I would hear, it's going to sound weird, but I would hear voices, like disembodied voices, and never be able to identify where they were coming from. But this particular day, I was playing with my Barbies, and I thought I heard my mother calling. I heard someone calling my name. I thought it was my mother. I was in my bedroom. I went out to find my mother, went all the way downstairs, and she said, I didn't call you. So I was like, okay. So I went back upstairs, and the head of one of my Barbie dolls was missing. And I was like, okay, what? So I'm looking all around. I can't find it. And I either think I hear my name again. I don't, I was very young, so I'm not exactly sure, but I either thought I heard my name again, or I went down to tell my mom that I couldn't find the Barbie head. Like, isn't that weird? I come back upstairs, the whole Barbie's missing now. And so now I'm really like, what in the world? So I go down, I tell my mother. She's like, nah, it's your brother. He's playing jokes on you. But it wasn't my brother. He was in the living room the whole time watching television. And there's no way that he could have snuck up. It was a small like townhouse. There's no way he could have snuck up. So I go back upstairs. The whole Barbie is back intact and exactly where I left it the first time I left the room. So that's the earliest memory that I have. But I would hear disembodied voices all the time. I would hear footsteps at night going up and down the hallway, pacing up and down the hallway. Sometimes they would come into my room. On at least one occasion, I remember distinctly the bed compressing, like somebody sat down next to me on the bed. And I would just lay there all night, and I would just do prayers. Like I would say the Lord's Prayer over and over. That was kind of like my talisman,
Yeah.
I would lay there with the covers up like this, and just repeat, or I would sneak into my parents' room. Finally, I got to the point, this continued on for years, and I was probably about 11 when my dad put his foot down, and he was like, absolutely not, you were way too old, and then I would sneak in with my pillow and I would sleep on their floor.
Yeah.
But I just didn't want to be in my room, because the dog would bark. The dog was absolutely seeing whatever it was that I was hearing, because I would hear it and the dog would jump up and, start barking at something. So yeah.
Wow. So see, my experience was so different, which we think is neat, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we were way apart, and then, fate kind of brought us together anyway from separate ends of the country. But I was raised Catholic, Ramona. So, a lot of hosts ask us, what were your first experiences? Well, I grew up in mysticism and miracles and bleeding saints and death and resurrection. And body, blood, all that kind of stuff. And, but when I was 16 years old, in high school, I was very active in the performing arts department, and all us kids kind of stayed in that wing together. And these two girls brought in a Ouija board. Now, when I was a kid, my aunt and uncle had a Ouija board, and we had no idea what it was, but we would be up in there. It wasn't really an attic, it was more like a loft. But on holidays, all us little kids would get together and spell out dirty words with the planchette. And we had no idea what we had, right? So these two girls bring in this Ouija board, and I always try to be real brief with this story, and it's in our book, Watch Out for the Hallway. But in a nutshell, it was kind of a classic Ouija horror story. So this little pioneer girl is contacting these two girls. They're becoming friends. Every day after school, they set up the Ouija board. Oh, what is the little girl? She tells them about the frontier, the woods, and all that. But then she's being chased by this man. And then the man actually chased her, and he killed her, and he drowned her in the water, wherever she died in the woods. But then a few more days later, it says, no, there is no little girl. I'm the man, and I'm a murderer, and I'm going to get you and all. So the girls are freaking out. And it's a bunch of Italian American Sicilians from New Jersey. And we're like, look, this is nonsense. But they stop coming to school. So for a couple of days, we don't see them. And somebody says, well, they're in the basement of the one girl's house, just on this Ouija board all the time. So my buddy Lou and I, we say, okay, we're going to put an end to this. We're going over to the house today after school in Lou's Camaro, his cool Camaro, 1982 Camaro, and word gets around. So probably like 15 or 20 kids all go to this girl's house, and we're all in the basement, and they got candles lit on the lead, it's an old style Jersey basement with the paneling and all that. And they're getting like frightened, and all the kids are hooked into it. I'm like, this is ridiculous. So I go, you know what? If there's anything here and you can do something to us, just do it. And Ramona, the world stopped for a split second, and my heart stopped for a split second. And a few of those candles went out. And I went, oh, there is something. There is something that is real. And it's bigger than you, and it's scarier than you. And I didn't have another experience till we got together when I was almost 30. But that was sort of like my training course when I was a kid about respect, right? Because a lot of the stories we're going to tell you tonight, I think if I didn't have that respect, we probably would have gotten into trouble. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It just like everything stopped for just a split second.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
And it's funny because how kids during a certain period, the Ouija board was the same.
Yes.
It was a game. And, the parents would get it, or I don't even know where mine came from, but I was 12 at the time. And that would have been like in the 60s. And just fooling around with it, with the neighborhood kids in the garage. The garage door was up. And I said, okay, let's do this. And we do it. And we're asking it questions. And, of course, it's moving and you're not moving it.
Yeah.
And then at one point, I think we asked, well, give us a sign that you're here. Did the garage door not crash down?
Wow.
And everybody crashed out of there, and that went in the garbage. And I think a lot of people, there's just things in this world that we shouldn't mess with because we don't know the origin of it. It's not fun. Let's have fun and do this. No, no, because we don't know.
Yeah, it's not, it's really like everything. It's about intention. Now, I grew up with Ouija boards. My grandmother was very much into all things metaphysical. She herself was a psychic medium. She did automatic writing. Everywhere she went, she brought her Ouija board. So when she would come visit my house as a kid, she always had a Ouija board. I, as a child, was not allowed to play with it. I was sometimes allowed to watch. And my dad's a total cynic. He doesn't believe in anything. But he would do it to just sort of, appease his mother, out of fun, he would do it.
Yeah.
My mom, on the other hand, is very sensitive like myself and my daughter. So she totally believed in it because she had lifelong experiences, but she didn't know what to make of them at all. But anyway, they would do, in fact, after my grandmother passed, I have a huge box. It's notebook after notebook of Ouija board transcripts. Because she did this for decades.
Wow.
And some of them are quite funny. She got a hold of people with just great senses of humor. you know, but it was, for her, it was all about the intention. And she used to tell me, like, this is not a game. You don't approach this lightheartedly. You have to surround yourself with white light. You have to say a prayer. You have to she gave me the whole thing. She also told me when I was about 14, she gave me a Ouija board. And said, you never use this alone, whatever you do, you never use this alone. So after she passed many years later, I wanted to try to contact her, and I was alone. So I get the Ouija board out and I said, Grandma, are you here? And it spells out, I told you never to use this. So, and that harkens back to something that happened. Yeah, in high school, I used it with my friends, and we were not following her directions. We were not taking it seriously, and a lot of stuff started to happen. So she had told me, you are never to use this again. So that was kind of funny that she came back to scold me through the Ouija board.
And you knew it was her.
And I knew it was her. Exactly.
Yeah.
So.
Wow.
We talked to her many years later with Rosemary Ellen Guiley at the Low Hotel in Point Pleasant, West Virginia.
Yep.
And she, I didn't want to touch it. I was probably 36, 40, probably 40.
Yeah, we were in our
or more
40s, I think, at the time.
Had children and everything, and I didn't want to touch it. And she said, just tell Joey, it'll be okay. I'll be here with you. And my hands were shaking when I put my hands on that planchette. But it was nice to meet your grandma from the other side.
Yeah, she had we had a great night that night.
Yeah.
A lot of good advice she came through with. It was very cool.
Well, come on. Tell us a little.
Yeah. So we had some friends there, and they were brothers, and they, like brothers do, were kind of getting at each other's,
about what to do later that day.
Yeah, they were kind of, arguing with one another, and it was getting a little, heated. And I forget exactly what she said, but she basically said, you two need to hug each other. You need to make up, you're brothers. You need to not do this. So that was one. Then another friend
and they were really impressed by that.
They were really impressed by that. Another friend of ours was thinking something. He didn't, if I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we had a friend, he didn't want to say what was on his mind, but he was wondering about something. And she came through with the answer. And basically he was wondering if he should go out to the TNT area in Point Pleasant by himself. It was something he had always wanted to attempt to do.
That's right, in the middle of the night.
He was always afraid to do it, and he was contemplating. And I might be wrong, but I think that he kept it to himself.
You're right, he did.
He did not share with us, so we didn't know that he was contemplating this. And she came through, and I forget what
we have the transcripts written somewhere, but she said, "Tell your friend not tonight. Don't do it." Yeah. So she, and then we were wondering about, Joey was waiting to hear about some news about work and whatnot. She came through with some advice about that. Oh, she's told us that we should get our daughter a dog. Right, which we did.
Because our daughter was, just kind of needing some more companionship. And she said, get her a friend, get her a dog. So it was very cool.
I do think it's interesting, though. She made a lot of predictions about the future, where we're going to be living and what we're going to be doing, and it didn't come true, which to me is great because everything isn't fixed. In that moment in time, that night, that was the trajectory we were on. But we're always juking and moving and planning and shuffling. So I've actually gotten a few. I don't get it done a lot, but I've gotten a few readings from some pretty well-known tarot readers and psychics. And that always get me wrong. They're embarrassed and frustrated. And I just think I try to live in the moment every day. You had an idea that you pitched to me, and I was like, yeah, let's go 100% with it. So I think that keeps the universe shuffling around. So I think that's what happened there. Yeah. But it was an honor to be able to talk with your grandmother, which I never would have been able to do.
Yeah. And I had not, so that would have been 10, 11 years ago, and
which probably so. About 2000.
20 years after
Yeah.
she died. So I hadn't
Yeah.
spoken to her for like 20 years at that point.
She had, in a sealed letter, if I'm not wrong, she had predicted her death years before it
She
happened,
had
right?
predicted her own death to my uncle, her son, many years before, and it was exactly the way she wrote about it. Because after
Wow.
she died, and my uncle, like my dad, I'd say my uncle's more of a skeptic than a cynic. My dad's just a cynic. He doesn't believe in anything. But my uncle's just very skeptical. But he could not explain. He showed me the letter right after she died. He said, I kept this letter because it was so bizarre that she wrote and, described exactly the way that she was going to die. And it was the car. She had the same car. It was pretty exact. She died in a car accident. So,
she was broadsided by a snowplow in a snowstorm, right?
Yeah.
Leaving a convenience store or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So that's pretty specific. It wasn't like,
Right.
yeah. So she's a very mystical lady, and you and our daughter and some other people are inputting all her notebooks, right? There may be a book in the future.
I would really like to write a book about my grandmother. She was very, very just a fascinating woman, and then of course include many of the transcripts she writes in there. She automatic writing.
Right.
There's UFO sightings journaled about in there,
Right,
so
that we've correlated for other.
that I was able to research and find actual newspaper articles that seem to correlate with what her sightings were. So in the 70s. So yeah, I'm working on that. One's going to take a while because we are talking literally dozens and dozens of spiral
like
bound notebooks,
single
filled.
Subject college ruled
Yeah,
notebook
filled with information.
Fascinating. She channeled a whole book by Justin the Martyr.
Yeah.
First person from Rome, and that's a hard sell for publishers, especially in the 70s. And then the family asked me to sort of vet the manuscript and do some research because I do that kind of thing. And it wasn't necessarily anything in the book that you could definitively say only Justin would know this from that time. But if you're talking generally and you're talking about your philosophies and all, you're not going to drop a bunch of secret clues to prove who you are. You're going to get on with your business. So we still have that manuscript.
We have the manuscript. There's like a self-portrait of Justin that she channeled.
Right.
So yes, all very, very cool. So that's kind of my Ouija experience.
Wow.
Yeah, I told you not to use this.
I told you not to use this. And so I put the Ouija board away and did not use it again until we contacted my grandmother with Rosemary all those years
with
later.
Rosemary's supervision, which Rosemary had written 2 books on Ouija boards, and she really knew what she was doing. Yeah. But it's still not something that we do.
It's not my favorite tool. Now that I've developed, my psychic mediumship, we have the PSB-11 that we use sometimes. I use a pendulum. I use
dowsing
the
rods
dowsing
are
rods.
great.
But Ouija board's not my favorite tool.
Yeah.
So you want to hear an interesting story of Tonya's about a parallel dimension and a All right.
Yeah.
I love this. I love listening to your stories.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
I love this story. I wish I could. Again, this was. Let me think about it. This was even earlier than the haunted house. So I have to think back. This would have been early, maybe 91, 92, somewhere around there. Early 90s. A friend of mine, I was living in Gilbert, Arizona at the time. And a friend of mine said, hey, Sunday I'm going down to Tucson, which, gosh, I don't even remember because I haven't lived in Arizona for 20 years now. But I guess Tucson was maybe a couple hours from Gilbert.
That's usually how you describe it, a couple hour drive.
I could be wrong, but a couple hour drive, few hour drive, whatever it was. And we didn't really plan it. And this is the days before the internet. Right. So you couldn't hop on the internet and go, oh, what is there to check out? What's open on Sunday in Tucson. So we just drive down and it's this long stretch of desert road. And we're driving along for quite some time and we're getting kind of hungry. and we see this diner. So we pull in, we figure, hey, we'll get some lunch, we'll go continue on down to Tucson. And we go in the diner, and it was, again, one of those situations where, like, from the minute you walk in, you just feel like something is off. And you can't put your finger on it. You don't know what it is, but just something is off. Everyone looked like they came from the 1960s, 70s, the way that people were dressed, the hairstyles, that kind of thing. There weren't a lot of people in the diner. I think there was maybe one other table with customers at it. But, and there was a man behind the counter, and he just told us, just grab a booth, whatever. So we grabbed this booth and we wait. We're looking at the menus. We were waiting. We must have been waiting 20 minutes or more. And finally, this waitress comes over, and she's all kind of flustered. And she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I kept you. She's like, we're just so swamped right now. And my friend and I are looking around like, okay, there's like hardly anybody. There's one other table, but they're swamped. So we order the food, and the waitress leaves, and I say to my friend, I was like, I'm pretty sure Elvis is in the kitchen making our food for us right now, because this place is weird. So she brings the food, and I don't really remember much about the food. It must have been okay. I think if it wasn't, I probably would have remembered. But we get the bill, and it's like crazy cheap. Like we're just like stunned. We're like, okay. So we pay the bill and we leave. And we're just kind of scratching our heads thinking that was really weird. So we go down to Tucson, and I always joke like Tucson was closed. Like there was nothing open because it was a Sunday. So we get down there, and there's really nothing for us to do. So we're there, I don't know, maybe a half an hour. And we're like, well, forget it. We might as well just go home. So we get in the car, we turn around, and we're like, well, maybe we'll stop at that diner again, grab like an iced tea or a cup of coffee or something. It wasn't there. There was no diner. I mean, the entire stretch of highway, we looked the entire way back. There was no diner. So, and I wish I would have known, like, again, that's way before I was a parent. Now, if that were to happen to me today, you better believe I would have taken copious notes about everything, down to the name tag on the waitress. But I didn't, I didn't.
Right, you weren't expecting not to see it again.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Do you remember what the name of it was? Have you been able to like check it out or anything?
No, but you know what I have done, like I say, I haven't been back to Arizona in many, many years, but I have gone on Google Earth, and I've looked at, that stretch of highway. Now, of course, we're talking well over 20 years later. So it's been developed, there's more things there than there would have been. But even on that stretch of highway, I don't see anything that would be that diner.
So you passed through a portal and got to eat there.
Yeah. And it just kind of begs, like, you're in another dimension. Like, how do you get in that other dimension?
Yeah.
And like the food that you ate there, you know what I mean? Like, what are what is the molecular, like,
and the money,
like, and how is that digest? You know what I mean? Like, all these things to think about.
And the money you spent.
And the money.
Like me, I would have known, like, if I had the same amount of money that I left with and all, you don't get involved with that too much.
No cars in the parking lot or anything. Were you guys the only car?
I don't. These are the details I wish that I remembered.
Yeah.
Because like I say, it was so long ago, and I wasn't thinking in these terms back then. Back then it was just like, well, that's really weird. And I had no frame of reference.
Portals or dimensions or
I just thought it was crazy.
Even though the outer limits and one step beyond were probably, I mean, I'm always tripping off of weird stuff. I mean, I don't let it slide at all, because
Yeah.
in order for it to catch my attention, there's got to be something off about it, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I may not know what it is, like you didn't know, but you knew something was off.
From the minute we walked through the door, I knew something was
Yeah.
off. I just didn't know what it was. And like I say, like if I walked into a diner like that today, I'd have a notebook, like I'd have my EMF, I'd have, you know, all of that. But back then,
I just back my way back out.
We
That ain't
do
afraid of
do
it.
that sometimes. We do that sometimes. And that's, you know, that's what we caution in the book, and people we train and mentor. If a voice is telling you go, you're not welcome here.
Yeah, listen to that inner
Whether
voice.
it's the thing itself that could potentially cause you harm, or your higher, you know, your higher self, or your spirit guides, or the universe, or however you want to deem it, your you know, your guardian angels, you must listen.
Yeah.
Because we're going to tell you a few stories tonight that have really,
Wow.
yeah, they could have been scary. So, okay, so you were talking about your purple entity visitor. Now,
Yeah.
we got together in 2007
No,
under
19.
Oh,
Oh,
yes, yeah.
wait.
No, I'm sorry, you're right.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
Yeah.
What
No, I'm getting confused. No, 1997, 2007, we moved to West Virginia. Built a nice house. We had 3 kids. We built a nice sprawling house in a holler. We had several acres. It was very nice, very remote, which was wonderful because we were city kids and military brats and all that. So it was fun. And we loved the movie. This is 2009 now. We love the movie Mothman Prophecies.
Okay.
It's a beautiful, I'm a filmmaker, and we're actors and writers, and it's just beautifully done. Richard Gere's good in it, and Laura Linney and Will Patton, and so on and so forth. So Tonya calls me one day. I guess you were probably at work, and I was I had a home office.
I think I was home. It doesn't matter. But
Yeah, and she says, "Look, there is a Mothman museum, and it's only like 3 hours from here. We should go see it. And it's on the Ohio River. You know, it's on the Ohio border." And I said, "Babe, I don't want to drive 3 hours to see a museum about something called the Mothman. Like, it's just a movie, babe. Like, let's not do it." And it
took me 2 years to convince him, because I, on the other hand, really did want to go see something called the Mothman. So,
and through our whole relationship, psychics and everybody and just wise people have said, "Joey, listen to Tonya, because she knows what she's talking about. If she says do something, you best do it." And it works. It always works out.
Yeah,
so we planned this getaway weekend, and I'm still kind of like, okay, well, we'll peek in the museum, but we're going just because it's like a date getaway weekend. We'll get away from the kids and all that good stuff and get on the road. And we fell in love with that town. You can see I'm wearing my Mothman search team.
Yeah.
We're so deeply entrenched now. But
it's kind of
for people that don't know it, Point Pleasant is a town of about 6,000 people. And it is right on the Ohio River, right across from the state of Ohio.
Actually, right on the convergence of the Ohio and the canal.
And the canal, right. And the park there is called Two Indy Way. Which is, I think, Shawnee. I really don't want to get that wrong. I think it's Shawnee, for where the rivers meet. So, you have 2 bodies of water that come together and create all this great energy. And we go to the museum. They give us a map. I think it's hanging back on the wall there somewhere to this day. And they say there are these cool igloos. There are these concrete igloos, and they used to store TNT in there. We had these TNT power plants. Manufacturing plants during World War II that made gunpowder and munitions and all this stuff. Okay, very interesting. We like it. So we go into this little store called The Point. It was owned by a man named Bob Landry. And Bob passed away. So many people we know have from Point Pleasant over the years have passed. And Bob was a cross between Johnny Cash and Elvis. He had a DA, and he had the pompadour with the DA, and he had cigarettes rolled up in his t-shirt.
Tattoo, I think.
Tattoo, cool, like one color tattoo, like old school, and a little bit of a drawl. And he was over the road trucker who had retired, and now he had this the shop. And he says, oh man, you got a map and all. He goes, I'll tell you where you need to go and what you need to do, right? And if it just promise me, if anything happens, let me know. He said, also, it's Indian burial ground, and that's never been
No one
confirmed.
else has ever said that.
So,
to us.
and maybe, I don't want to say he just wanted us to buy $5 worth of sage, but we
Well,
did
no,
buy a bundle of sage.
We did that based on our
Yeah.
studies. So
Yeah.
he didn't recommend.
So we
that.
drive out there. And it's a beautiful, beautiful day, right? I could still picture that blue sky. And we pull into this it's remote, but I grew up in Jersey and I used to bike for dozens of miles in the Pine Barrens, home of the Jersey Devil. So I don't mind the woods. When I was a kid, we used to play in the woods and all that in Jersey and play in bombed out, burnt down houses and all that, be covered in poison ivy for months. And I tell you all that because we get out of the car, beautiful day. It's like Ducks Unlimited. It's this beautiful pond. The TNT area is now a super fun site that has become, all these decades later, the McClintock Wildlife Preserve. So they've really cleaned it up. It's beautiful. It's serene. And we are scared to death, right?
Yeah. Again, that feeling of being watched, just feeling very uneasy, like I can't get out of here quick enough.
That something bad can happen to you.
Beautiful day. So
yeah, which we learned from John Keel's research is something called the zone of fear, right? Where for no apparent reason that you can discern, you feel in fear of your life and you're watched and something is off, something's wrong. So we go down, there's 3 igloos that you can access. We get to the first one, which is maybe 40, 50 feet maybe in. And it's not like it's dense woods. I mean, it's a well-done pathway. Right. You go over this guardrail. I stuck my arm in, got a couple snaps with the digital camera. We left the sage, said a few words and said, like, let's get the hell out of here. So we get in the car. We had this Ford Explorer and we're driving down what's Route 62 going back to Point Pleasant, if anybody wants to retrace the route. I mean, it's been in tons of books and, we've talked about a lot. And we're just like, that was weird.
Yeah.
How could it be so beautiful? How could we be so scared? And suddenly we turn to each other and say,
did you see that?
Right. And if we hadn't said that, probably we wouldn't be sitting here with you, Ramona, and our life would be different and the books wouldn't exist. I wouldn't be wearing this hat and my office would look very different. But we did. And this voice inside of me said, here's what you do. Don't talk about what you saw. Soonest chance that you get, sit down and each of you draw what you saw. Now that didn't come from me. That wasn't, we were not even newbies. We knew nothing about the paranormal. You had never told me about your childhood experiences, any of it. It just wasn't something we ever talked about. Ouija boards, all of that. So we go to Bob's, right? You pick it up from here. I've been talking for a while.
Right. So we should back up for a minute and say that when we were in the store and Bob was giving us a map and he said, if anything happens, come back, let me know. Well, when we bought the sage to take and leave at the TNT area, there's a receipt and the receipt said 2:30 p.m.
Right.
It takes about 15 minutes max to drive from downtown Point Pleasant out to the Wildlife Preserve or the TNT area, maximum 15 minutes. So we drive out there, we're there maybe 15 minutes. So you figure half an hour has gone by and then 15 minutes back. So 45 minutes maximum is about how long we could have been gone. So we get back to the shop. We want to tell Bob, yeah, we actually saw something coming back and the shop's locked up. And we're a little bit confused because we're like, I wonder if he's like on a break or whatever. And we look at our phones and realize it's after 5 now. So we have over 2 hours of missing time. So wow. That was really odd. So we share with Bob what we had seen
in general, right? Because we knew that we had to go someplace and draw it.
Right. We wanted to
saw this weird thing over the road. We saw it. It blinked out. And he gave us the card of John and Tim Frick, who some people will know from television. They're experts on the Mothman. They play the Men in Black for various things. And we go to the restaurant and we draw it. And I don't have the books with me tonight, but it's basically this black figure with cornfields on both sides and the lines in the road and the windshield. So Ramona, even though Tonya and I see the world very differently and express it very differently, the pictures were almost identical. So it was weird. So we get home and it's so confusing. It's so confusing and disorienting. We get home and I say to Tonya, I guess I'll call these guys and hopefully they won't answer the phone. I'll just leave them a message. They'll never call us back and that'll be that. Right. And sure enough, they didn't answer the phone and I left a message. I said, you don't know us, blah, blah, blah. Bob Landry gave us your card. We had this weird experience in Point Pleasant and we were leaving a Walmart about 2 months later and my phone rings and it comes up unavailable. Usually I don't answer it, but I answer it. And long story short, we went down that November. They invited Rosemary Ellen Guiley, a superstar in our field, and some other paranormal investigators, because for some reason they felt like there was something to it. They trusted us, even though they didn't know who we were. So we walked the route. We went to the corporate, and we noticed a couple of several anomalies. Go ahead.
Oh, so we should describe what we saw at this point.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Sorry.
So we're coming back on Route 62. We're talking about, wasn't that weird? Why do you think we felt so, afraid in the broad daylight, that kind of thing. And all of a sudden, about 20, 30 feet ahead
I would
of
say
us
so.
on the road,
no more than that.
something materializes on the berm of the left-hand side of the road, just materializes, and in a single bound leaps in front of the car across the road, lands on the berm on the right-hand side of the road, and just vanishes.
Maybe about 8-10 feet above the surface of the road.
So in a single bound, just leaps across 2 lanes.
Now I saw it different. I saw it come out in the road just in front of us in the sky, but then as it descended, blinks out.
It blinks
so
out.
I did see that. So and I always described it as like a man in a neoprene wetsuit, like a jet black wetsuit, shiny with the hood and all, being shot out of a cannon. But yours was different.
Well, I mean, I saw it was, a dark gray color. There were no discernible limbs on the upper sort of torso. There was like a shape of a head, a torso, and 2 legs,
which is what we drew,
but no like arms or wings.
So
we
wings.
We don't think it was Mothman.
No, it wasn't.
But it was dark gray, and so it sort of looked like a man in a neoprene suit with no features and no arms, but it moved in my mind like a deer. The way that it sort of glided in, if you've ever seen a deer sort of jump across a road, that's exactly how it moved. So as we turned to each other and said, "Did you see that?" I mean, that's right after it just like landed and it vanished. And it happened so quickly that had we not turned to each other and said that at exactly the same moment, we probably would have dismissed it as, a trick of the eye or something. But because we both saw it and we knew that we saw it, and like I say, when we drew it later, we both drew exactly the same thing. So the anomalies were that we both recalled as we were coming up 62 that there were cornfields on both sides of the road.
Right.
Okay.
In November, when we went back, we remembered exactly where it was, because where we saw it, the lines in the road kind of forked, and it's the only place on that stretch of road where the lines kind of come to this like fork. So we knew that's where it was. There was only one cornfield, and there couldn't have been a second cornfield, because where we thought there was a second cornfield was actually a house and a property, and that house had clearly been there for a very long time.
Yeah, there was a tree in the front yard that had to be at least 15 years old, and so we're like almost right across from the power station. Another copse of trees where Rosemary Ellen Guiley had some fancy equipment. She was pretty sure that there was a portal, maybe tied to the power station, but we're along for the ride, right? Literally, we're along for the ride. I remember a garage with a gas station. And again, it looked out of time. There were colorful, like triangular pennants around it as if they were having a grand opening or a special event. That gas station is not there. It has never been there. And we've done extensive research and interviewed people, right? Because it's been 12 years now. So for 10 years, we tell this story. Rosemary starts to mentor us. We become paranormal investigators after going through her informal mentorship. We get a great opportunity to spend 2 years on a library, 2015 to 2017. We write Watch Out for the Hallway, publish it. Rosemary's publicizing us. And so we're doing all these radio shows to promote Hallway.
Mm-hmm.
And one night we're sitting here in the dark. It's like 2 a.m, radio shows. They're all on the West Coast. So you're up at like 2 a.m, trying not to sound like a moron. And one of the guys says out of the darkness, have you ever been regressed hypnotically? Have you ever found out what happened in that 2.5 hours of missing time?
Yeah.
Well, not Rosemary, not anybody, not the dozens or maybe hundreds of people who had heard or read our story in various books and all had ever asked us that. Nobody had ever asked us that. You were just getting started in that journey. You since
With
went
my
on to
hypnosis certification.
Andrew Casey Institute regression. So it was the perfect time. Like we feel like this whole thing was guided. Every single moment of it was guided. So we felt comfortable, right? Because, reading Whitley Strieber's Communion and reading about Bud Hopkins and people like that, I was a little skeptical. Like, can you implant a suggestion? If you have someone under hypnosis, if you don't ask the right questions, like you say, do you see anything weird? Well, your brain's going to want to play. Your mind's going to want to play. So we had some great regression therapists that we really trust. And Tonya and I, this was October, November of last year. So it was right about a year ago. Well, I go first, and then you went, several weeks later before they had a time. So I go first. We have a recording of it. It's about 40 minutes long between the induction, which was quite long, and then my experience was about 20 minutes, and then my coming out of it. So we're going down the road on 62. But prior to that, something was watching us. And Ramona, this is what it was.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so I mentioned we had the session recorded. We sent it to, and I'll put this back up in a minute. We sent it to 6 or 8 colleagues, some of which knew that journey intimately from us telling them and them actually being there and investigating it, and others that had nothing to do with it. I also sent it to a college roommate of mine who's a very talented artist. He does all our book covers and all. And he came back and he said, I would like to draw that thing that you described. And I said, oh, yes, please. Yes, please. So this is what he said. So this is his drawing of this. Now, it's a sort of deer-like being, which is interesting because I've always been, I think it's the Lascaux Caves. There's the elk shaman. It's kind of a famous drawing. Yeah. And I've always been fascinated with that. And it recalls that to me a little. But it's somewhere between a goat and a deer.
Yeah.
But the eyes are kind of gray alien a little. Certainly not normal for a beast of this kind. So it was watching us. So we were being watched. It wasn't our imagination. Well, what we can piece together from our regression and then just trying to look at all the data, it was sort of like, oh, they sense me. Step 1. Then it shows itself to us over the road. Oh, it can see me. Step 2, now I'm going to call my friends. So as we're going down the road, the car starts to become transparent, like Wonder Woman's airplane. I can see the transmission, I can see the engine block, things moving, things working, and then the car begins to spin with tremendous force. It spins, and I wind up in this field with a barn that's pristine, with a grain silo, pristine, no animals, no anything. Looks sort of like when Dorothy wakes up in Oz and everything is Technicolor. And I'm saying, this is fake. I don't know where the hell I am, but this is fake. And there's the garage, Sonny's garage. Okay, this is interesting because when I was a kid, I really wanted to be an auto mechanic. That's what I wanted to do more than anything. And all the, the guidance counselors and all said, you're too smart. You're too smart to use your hands. You gotta go to college, blah, 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 blah. I'm still hoping to buy an old truck and work on it. So they must have picked up on that. So they showed me this garage, Sonny's garage, and all this business. And I just won't fall for it. And they're saying to me, and now these weird beings with very long, thin, 3 very long fingers, almost frog-like, okay? And they're saying, just go with it. Just go with it. Just believe in it. Believe in it. I'm saying, no, 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 no. And they say, well, not a good you can hear me on the tape. Not a good candidate, not a good candidate, not a good candidate. And the hypnotherapist says, is Tonya a good candidate? I say, oh yeah, Tanya's a good candidate, but I'm not a good candidate. So you want to pick up from there with your own?
So for me, I don't remember, like I didn't see the car go translucent or anything. For me, it's kind of like it shifts from, we're at the TNT area, we feel like we're being watched. Next thing I know, I'm on a table in a dark room. Somehow I know the room is round. I don't know how I know it because it's completely dark. But I am on some kind of, typical alien abduction type thing where you're on this like cold metal table, but I'm not afraid. I'm more or less just kind of like, how long is this going to take? Because like, this is a little bit boring in here. And I look over and I can't quite see the being. I can sort of see like a profile and kind of get a sense. And this being has a black box and the box has like lights and he or she is scanning my body, sort of, going up and down the length of my body with this lighted box. And so and I could see the fingers again, 3 fingers, 3 sort of, suction cup kind of fingers. So I was able to kind of piece together from what I was able to see, like this, like 3/4 profile. It's basically your classic. This is my very crude drawing.
I find it very compelling. I don't find it crude.
Wow.
So, and there's the box.
The 3 fingers.
The 3 fingers. The only thing to me is like kind of classic gray. The skin color wasn't gray though. It was more like a cobalt blue. And again, how did I know that? It was dark, but I just kind of knew it. And I could just kind of see, like this much of the face. Whoops. Right. This much of the face. But to me, the thing that I really noticed is like, it was the head was sort of shaped like a gray alien, but it was very much more bulbous at the top than what you think of like a gray alien. But either way, I'm not afraid. I'm not sort of like this guy. Do you
remember when you sculpted that?
I sculpted this way before we had any experiences. I sculpted this
way before.
In 2002, 2003.
And what I noticed was what I was checking is there's only 3 fingers on each hand, 3 long fingers with the bulbs at the end. And there aren't any hidden fingers where, see, it's just the 3. So you kind of knew, you sculpted this, I think, out of I
plucked that out of my unconscious mind.
Way back I just realized
2002.
That.
Yeah, I never thought about that or made that association. But anyway, so it would appear that I'm maybe used to this sort of thing happening because I'm not at all I'm not upset by it. I'm not afraid. I'm just kind of annoyed, really, if anything, like how long is this going to take, right? So he's scanning me. Next thing I know, I am in the woods and I'm sort of on a bank. Below the bank is sort of like a stream or a creek or something. And I'm in the woods. It's kind of like early fall. So it's chilly, but there's like leaves on the trees, which is about the time that we were there.
Middle of August. So a little early for that.
Either way, I look, there's like a dog, it's like a golden retriever, some kind of dog sitting next to me. And then from behind me off in the woods, I hear this I don't know, like howl or something. It reminded me like of a Bigfoot. Like if you were going to hear like a Bigfoot calling, off in the woods is what it made me think of. And I look over at the dog and I'm just kind of wondering like, okay, why am I here? How did I get here? Next thing I know, I'm back on the table. And the tables, it had been, lying flat, and then it kind of tilts up. And now I'm tilting up, and then I just kind of start floating toward a doorway out of I'm going to say it was like a spaceship or a craft or something. And I go out the doorway, and the next thing I know, I'm back in our Ford Explorer in the driver's seat, and we're seeing the thing.
Yeah. Now, was the dog with you the whole time? Where did this dog come from?
I have no idea where the dog came from. We did not own a dog at the time. We did not have a dog with us. There was no dog in the craft with me. It was very odd because it was like, why am I in the woods? And where is this dog? Like, where did this dog come from? Why is it here? And it was just sitting there looking at me. So it's just, all of it was very,
And was it
like so weird you couldn't make it up.
Was it a
So
yellow
random.
lab or a golden retriever?
I'll
You
have
remember?
to go back to
Okay.
the notes because
The reason I ask is that's
don't
my dream dog, a
remember.
yellow lab.
yeah.
And you're out in the woods. Of course, being a writer, I have this big romantic thing about having a cabin in the woods and having, yeah. So I wonder, and it's all speculation, of course, we don't know, but if they were bringing her out to try to hook me in, but then my mission was just aborted. It was over. They called it. They're like, there's no help with this guy. So let's finish up with this girl who's kind of complaining about her schedule. We are probably the most uncooperative. We don't even call ourselves abductees, although we weren't asked permission. So I suppose, according to the textbook definitions, we're abductees.
Yeah, well, and I should say too, I mean, there is the sculpture that, like, back in the early 2000s, I used to have a hobby, and it was polymer clay, and I would sculpt all kinds of things. I would sculpt little fairies, ballerina, all kinds of things. And just one day I sculpted that alien with 3 fingers. But I used to joke for many years that, oh, I guess the aliens, and I was half joking.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be like, oh, I guess the aliens got me again last night. Because I would wake up and there would be something amiss, like, my feet would be dirty. There would be grass in the bed. I would have finger marks. That was the most common one, is that there would be bruises, like finger marks. And it wasn't Joey. There were times that it would happen. I was home alone. And they weren't there.
It was uncomfortable because it looked like someone, and I would be the logical suspect, had grabbed her forcefully on the arms. It was concerning. I've seen those.
I would have scratches, and then starting around, probably actually around 2007, I developed what I would joke were implants. And I don't know if they are or not, but these very odd sort of bumps right under the skin that just appeared overnight. And you can feel that there's an object, something hard under the skin there. I wish I would have known at the time about Roger Lear, because I, may have contacted him.
And they have moved further away from the surface. We have put some Gauss meters and some things like that.
Really
they do register.
The Gauss meter.
Yeah, so we should. We just had L.A. Marzulli on our show. Maybe I'll reach out to him and see if he's working with anybody else. But yeah, it was. And even when you were little, right? You were like, I don't think my parents are my parents.
Well,
so you always had this weird idea of maybe coming from out there, which so many people have told you that now.
Yeah. Well, that I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of kids maybe wonder if they're.
I never did.
I know I did.
That I don't know, but that could have just been me. Like, how am I part of this family?
But maybe not though. Maybe it was a. But so we didn't know what to do with this. We were now pretty established. Our second book had already come out.
Mm-hmm.
It had just come out probably a few weeks before we agreed to the opportunity arose. We trusted the hypnotherapist and also I remember sitting there drinking coffee after your thing and going, what do we do with this? Like, it's Joey and Tonya, the ghost people, you know, Rosemary's mentees and all this. And we've listened to their stories, and Tanya's the psychic medium, and we've gone along. And now they have this abduction story. So I said to Tonya, look, we're relaunching our show. We had been just doing radio spots for a network, you know, about old cases and stuff. I said, we're about to relaunch our show. Let's make the first episode. Let's just tell the story pretty much like we've told it to you, Ramona, tonight. And we had the pictures. I said, let's just put it out there and get it out of the way. And people have been very kind, very interested. Is very affirming. And we believe that the more of us who are telling these stories on, like you told your story.
Yeah.
Absolutely credible.
And it was hard because I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm even uttering these words. You know,
I know that's like me for years. I was joking about, oh, I guess these, bumps are from the aliens, or I guess this grass in the bed is, but I was only half joking. And it was really because I didn't want to sound crazy. You know what I mean? It was like, how do you like really say seriously that this might be happening?
You know, Tom, I just thought of something with the, we started doing our show here in our house in Eastern Ohio. And during the show, other psychic mediums and sensitives would go, oh, there's a person going there. And oh, there's an old woman with half her face burned off there. And there's this guy in a Quaker hat there, or there's this swirl of light, right? You would talk to your clients. You're sitting on the couch. So we come to find out that there's a portal in our living room. And there's a hawthorn tree on the property. You and I have always been sensitive to fairy elements and portals, and they're probably linked. We had a cool fairy circle on our property in West Virginia and all.
Yeah, well, and fairy and alien contactee experiences are very similar.
Are we doing okay on time, Ramona?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I mean,
we'll tell you an interesting. Yeah, we could talk for days, so you're gonna have to let us know. But we were doing a presentation, speaking of that, and this woman stays at the end. I think we were talking about hallway at the time. Roommates wasn't out yet. And she says, I have to tell you this interesting thing. I come from a long family of psychic mediums. Everyone, is a sensitive. And now my grandson is very sensitive. And I went to visit, and we're sitting in the living room kind of catching up, and it's later at night, and they're sending him off to bed. I want to say he was about 8. And he stands at the foot of the stairs and he goes, okay, I'm coming up now. Don't bother me. I'm coming up. And she says, okay, this is very interesting. So something happens with the sleeping arrangements. And the next night she winds up sleeping in his bedroom. And she wakes up in the middle of the night and she's staring face to face with a gray alien. She goes down to the breakfast table and she says to her grandson, who do you talk to? Like, what do you see when you call up the stairs? I'm coming up, and he goes, oh, you mean the fairy? That's a wonderful correlation going all the way back to Jacques Vallée and all that, between the overlaps between fairies and gray aliens. I mean, Tonya and I would be concerned that Tonya and I saw fundamentally different things, except for Betty and Barney Hill. Right. Yeah. We're coming up on the 60th, or we just passed the 60th anniversary. Their experiences were overlapped, like Tanya's and I, but there also were divergences.
Yeah.
Betty's experience was much more detailed and, interactive than Barney. So I found that fascinating. So anyway, we're trying to close the portal, and we went through this elaborate ritual. I guess you were getting advice from the other side. And didn't you, we had a plan of attack to finally close it after 2 weeks.
Well, so my spirit guides had given me all the steps that we needed to do, and we were following that protocol. But then the night that we were going to sort of complete the process, some I don't know, extraterrestrial beings, for lack of a better, but these were very humanoid. These did not look like grays. These were more like what you think of like the Pleiadian type. beings came through. They had on like this, jumpsuits, and they had these devices, and they basically just used whatever technology they were holding in their hands to kind of clear the energy in our house and close the portal. So we didn't even have to finish the protocols.
Correct me if I'm wrong though, but wasn't there a purple light?
I don't remember. We'd have to look at the
Yeah,
notes
I think
again.
according to the notes, they were emanating this purple light, and it recalled to me what,
Yeah, because
what you had said, which is why I brought it up.
let's
Yeah.
see. Can you see? I don't know how to work this.
Oh, the
The
background sometimes
background's
makes it
kind of-
impossible.
Oh,
Leaving
oh,
it out.
shit.
You
Yeah,
need to
because
put-
I want, let's see. Let me turn that off because I want you to see this. Okay, see if this will help, but I have that green screen behind
Yeah,
me.
I think you have background blur going on.
Oh,
so-
there it goes. Wait.
Oh,
Oh,
That's
oh,
the shape
wow.
of its head,
Yes.
and that's its fingers,
Yeah.
and then of course
Wow.
the edge of the bed.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the rest of it looked like.
Very
Right.
similar to my drawing.
Yeah.
Shape of the head.
And not worlds
the thin
different
neck.
than the sculpture.
Yeah,
Not worlds
yeah.
different. Wow, that's
This was
how cool.
wide, like a flying saucer shaped head or something,
Wow.
because all the others were little at the bottom and,
Yeah.
and came up, but this looked like it either had a helmet on or, had just this big, wide flying saucer, old fashioned flying saucer shaped head.
Yeah. That's
Wow.
what with this
Long,
one too.
skinny neck,
Yeah.
skinny neck and body that.
Yeah. Like with this one too, I wasn't able to capture it at all, but just like what you're describing, up toward the top, it was just very bulbous.
Right, wide. It didn't
Wider.
like go pointed or anything. It just
Right.
was. And I still to this day try to find something to logically
Mhm.
explain
Sure.
it. Still
Yeah.
today,
Yeah.
and I can't.
Yeah, no, 12 years. I mean, even after 10 years of people going, yeah, we think this is legitimate, publishing it in their books, having us on their radio shows to talk about it, we sent those audio tapes out to, or the digital files out to, I think it was 8 people, 8 experts, and said, please poke holes in this. Call out when you think that they're asking leading questions. And they're like, this is solid. This is good work. This is legitimate. And then you go, okay, well,
Yeah.
here we are, right? This has become a huge part of our life.
Yeah.
And not planned.
And so, I mean, from my point of view, after all of that, I really believe that for me, the contact has been lifelong. And that is why I've had lifelong experiences,
Yeah.
And then Joey started having strange experiences once we got married. So, I lived in the haunted house that I talked about in Mesa, but pretty much every place, like I said, as a kid, the disembodied voices, the disembodied footsteps, as an adult, every place I've ever lived, I would experience these things, but I had learned, because they frightened me, to ignore them and to shut them out. And then I married Joey. Every house we live in together has experiences.
Right. And our 22-year-old daughter is a quite gifted psychic medium
Right.
who had terrible nightmares and could see these
Wow.
things, and was invaluable on her investigation of the library for 2 years. I could sense them. I could feel it in my solar plexus. I know when something is off, but because I can't see it, I'm more curious. And she'd say, no, Dad, this thing is grabbing its face and it looks like Edward Munch's the
Oh
screen.
my
Like,
God.
please don't go in that room. Yeah, she's quite a trooper. She was on our show once to talk about her experiences. We were very appreciative. But yeah, she's very gifted. And Rosemary's theory was, you are just a battery for places. You really kind of juice them and light them up.
Yeah, and looking back, like for like 9 years, I was the only child, and I guess psychic, and would experience a lot of things that I kept to myself because I was fascinated by it, and it got to the point where I tried to see what else can I do? What else can I do?
Oh,
But
wow.
I noticed as I got older, I'd go out, having gone out and come home and sit and watch something, look down, thinking it's 20 minutes later, and yet it's a couple of hours have passed. I haven't moved
Wow.
from my spot, but I'm like,
Wow.
damn, where, I don't remember anything about the movie, but I'm still sitting in that same spot, and it would happen always around the same time. I never gave it any thought until last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought maybe I was just zoning out or concentrating too hard, but thinking only 15 minutes had passed when it's been a couple hours. I'm still in my home and stuff. There wouldn't be any marks on me or anything different. It's just that all of a sudden I'd be watching a movie, and then I'm watching the movie and it's a totally different movie, and I'm trying to figure out, well,
Wow.
what happened? All the time that would happen. And then I guess I just used to tease people, say, oh, I'm so glad I don't see nothing, honey. I don't want to see no ghosts. I don't want to hear no ghosts. And one night I did an automatic writing for, it was some kind of message that came through for my girlfriend down the street. Well, the kids when I was growing up called me the animal lady because the animals would gravitate to me and stuff like that. As I got older, people and I started studying metaphysical and trying to figure out what these gifts are. Then it got to be the witch lady, and then if they came into my house, they saw a ton of books on different subjects, but now I'm the devil worshiper, which no, all about, like tarot reading or uh, trying to divination, astrology, things like that. But, in the neighborhood and communities that I grew up, very religious, Baptist, Pentecostal, etc., you just didn't do that.
Right.
But there were times when I'd sit and I'd zone out, and I got to where I'd have a drawing pad with me, and I could see faces in the walls.
Wow.
Every now like, look, and I'm not high, I'm not anything. I may be tired, but I've always had very little sleep growing, even as a kid, maybe 4 hours of sleep, and then I'm up. But I said, let me start having an art pad by and start drawing what I see. So when the next day, if I look at it and it actually looks like a face, because I wouldn't really be looking at the drawing, I'd be looking and drawing as I'm looking because I don't want it to go away.
Right.
And I'd look at it the next day, and I'll be damned if it didn't look like faces, real faces that I'm seeing. And I just,
Yeah.
there's a lot going on.
Yeah. So I have a question for you. So you were having these experiences, and then you see this purple thing, and it was jabbing or sticky. Do you think
It stuck me with something like it gave me a shot? My toenail turned black.
Oh wow!
Oh my
So
gosh!
do you think that? Do you think that it was time for them to reveal themselves to you? Or do you think it was accidental? Or
I don't know. I don't know. They must have wanted me to see it, and so, like, of course, after you get over the experience, and then you say, "Oh shit, I should have asked this and that and that." So I'm sitting up, waiting for this creature to come back because now I want to ask you so many questions,
Right.
and nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah,
And nothing.
right.
I said,
You
damn,
know?
all these years, I'm 66 and never saw an anything, but I never believed or disbelieved. Whatever people said, I just never saw anything. But after all I've been through in my life, I know anything is possible.
Yeah.
And then when
Wow.
I least expected it, there it was. So I took out my pendulum. I was cleaning out my bedroom, and I found an old pendulum I used to use. And I said, oh, I'm gonna see if I still got it with the pendulum. And so I said, okay, remember the thing that visited me? Is it coming back soon? And it said, no, back and forth, no. I said, well, will it be back before January? And it started going round and round and round and round. Like, yes. And then I said, okay, it's going to come and heal me. Or did it heal me or do something? And it said round and round and round, like, yes. And I'm saying, okay, so it will be back. It will be back, and I'll get to answer. And I asked it, that it doesn't mean me any harm, does it? And it said, no, no.
So that's coming up this coming January, next couple of
Yeah.
months.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
that's
maybe it's
exciting.
coming back, I hope so, because I finally saw something.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I lost, I keep kicking myself because you lose the chance to, question. I wasn't afraid. I was just shocked,
Sure.
and trying to, because it was dark, but there was the light that outlined it.
Mhm.
And so I could see the blue, purplish color. I couldn't see any features. And I was like, am I, how you do, you think, am I really seeing this? And then when it looked up and it saw me and I'm sitting up like this, and then it just started evaporating, in beautiful gold and purple dust like sparkly things. And then it was gone.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the only thing that was left was the pain in my leg, and my toenail days later started turning, it's finally going back to normal.
Wow.
And that's
Physical
been
evidence.
almost a year,
Wow.
over a
That's
year.
that's
Yeah.
incredible.
I just think of the purple and the gold. That's really upper
That's high
chakra.
frequency.
Yeah, super high frequency.
So
Oh, so cool. Well, we promised your listeners, you promised your listeners, and some spooky or creepy. So we have a couple of things. I don't know if these all qualified or not, but we took a case. It was a couple of years ago now. It was referred to us.
It was
and it was pretty serious.
2019.
Yeah, I think it was 2019. It's in Roommates from Beyond.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was pretty serious. This man was having trouble sleeping. He was a war vet. His son, who didn't live with him, was also having terrible things, and he thought this mist was going in and out of his mouth one night. 2 of their cats had died without explanation, like a wasting disease. And he had almost had a fatal heart attack or a real heart situation, and the doctors could find nothing wrong to explain anything. So they had reached out to a colleague reaches out to us, says maybe you could help. So when we work, we always take we do an intake interview, because we don't want to waste our time. We don't want to waste people's time. We don't want to make a situation worse. So I talked to him on the phone. And the initial theory, it turned out not to be. It was more of a shadow entity. It was a creepy, nasty thing that was basically feeding on his weapons, his bloody boots, his uniforms from his time overseas in the Middle East. This thing was just feeding on the memories of the energies in these things. But it took us a while to figure that out. So they're thinking jinn, this and that, whatever. So I talked to him for about probably 45 minutes, and I said, okay, let's set up a video conference. I'll bring Tonya in. She's the psychic medium. But it sounds like there's something here and we might be able to help. Well, I go out, I get the 5-foot A ladder, and I go out to clean the gutters in front of the house, which I've done dozens of times. After college, before I, got into the world working other stuff, excuse me, I would be on 20, 25 feet in the air, like painting soffits. So I'm very careful, have good balance. I go up with a broom so I don't have to move the ladder as much, for reach. It's not very high up, maybe 8 feet up, the gutters are.
Yeah.
And I start to clean, and that ladder was pulled out from under me. Now, the ladder didn't go from the top down. The legs, I felt the legs go. I went up in the air. The ladder went down. I fell on the ladder with my back, like down around my kidneys, and was crawling around, like completely couldn't get my breath. I'm groaning. The neighbor comes running out, and the broom is bent and broken in 3 places. And we're pretty sure it was a warning from these entities saying,
Wow.
do not get involved. Do not interfere with what we are doing. Do not interdict yourself into the situation. And we did. But you always check in with your spirit guides for information.
Well,
Yeah,
so
go ahead.
So I want to back up though, because we did have the video interview, and the couple sitting in the living room, or was it the dining room or the living room? Maybe
We
it
were
was the
sitting in
dining
the living room.
Anyway,
They were sitting
were
in the dining room
room.
during the video interview. Yes.
Right
Sorry.
behind them, as we're talking, I'm seeing classic hat man, basically. Man in a top hat, 19th century style clothing, thin man. I don't want to say anything to them and alarm them, because we're just trying to do the interview and get the history and get the background and everything. But I sketch it out, and I'm thinking, okay, when we go there, I want to see if I see this entity again. I want to see if they mention it, if anything comes up about it. So I had not said anything to them. So we go, I guess it was
But prior to that morning, you were checking in with your spirit guides for advice.
No, that's what I was about to say.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
When we went there after, so we did the video interview, then it was, I guess, a couple weeks later when we actually went to where they were.
Yeah.
And that morning, I was checking in with my spirit guides about advice, what can you give me? How should we handle this? All of that kind of thing. Initially, I was getting someone who was posing as my friend and mentor, Rosemary Ellen Guiley. And Rosemary comes through for me quite a bit. She's continued to mentor me from the other side since her passing. But there was something, like, I knew this wasn't Rosemary. It was something impersonating Rosemary.
Oh, wow.
Because it wasn't really talking to me. And so I was able to kind of clear that away. And then I had some other guides come through, and they said, okay, here's what you need to know when you go there. This was really odd. Don't accept any food or water from the wife.
From the people.
I couldn't remember.
Don't accept any food or drink, which was weird.
There. And I later thought, not because these people are gonna try to poison us or like intentionally try to harm us, but the frequency of the vibration in that home would have affected the water or the food or anything in the house.
Wow.
So they didn't want me to consume anything that was
right. Plus, I think the entities could mess with us too.
Right.
So we go through all the house where we were there for over an hour, and things are starting to fall into place, and messages that Tonya had gotten about the couch, things were all making sense. We were able to clear the place. It took a while. We covered these 2 mirrors that were in the living room under these matching fireplaces. It was beautiful, but these mirrors were the portal. And it was very bizarre because a year before, we had done a presentation literally in the building catty corner to this house.
Wow.
Yeah, we had done a nighttime, we had done a conference, and then we were the feature speakers for this paranormal and pastries at this restaurant. I said, man, this sounds awful familiar. And we pull up and I'm like, hun, there it is. There's the inn where last year we did this presentation and had all these weird, you'll appreciate this, Ramona. I think it's kind of funny. We were doing the presentation and I started to get wobbly and weird. Tanya said there was a ghost of this hippie chick was like blowing like pot smoke in my face and stuff from the other side. I was getting a contact high from the
You were
other
getting a
side.
contact high.
From the other side.
Oh
So,
my God.
so we find out that these things are going back and forth. Now, it was a long day, and then there was a secondary investigation we had to do involving clearing of a drive-in. It was a very long day. We're getting on the road, night has fallen, and the client had really wanted their son, who had the mist coming out of his mouth and all, talk to us. And they call, we no sooner are pulling out to go home, they call and say, can you please come back? Because our son is here. Well, we say, yes, of course. So he has his little son with him.
Wow.
And
who's like
now,
what, 4 or 5 years old?
Yeah, I'm going to say 5 or 6. Yeah. Because he was pretty articulate.
Yeah, he was very
So keep in mind that we had never said anything about the Hat Man, because why frighten these people?
Right. I didn't want to bring it up if they didn't mention it.
So the grandfather says to the boy, and this is completely spontaneous, he says, can you tell these people what you see, the man that you see? And the boy says he's tall and he's thin and he wears a hat. And I said, and his grandpa was wearing a baseball hat. I said, is he wearing a hat like your grandpa's hat? No, like the man in the circus wears. And he has, which is what Tanya had drawn weeks earlier. That's in Roommates from Beyond. The drawing, a facsimile of the drawing is in Roommates from Beyond. But he says it has fangs and it has a cane that it chases me around with.
I think I had drawn the cane as well.
You may have. I didn't want to say that when you first said it, but yeah. So that was quite, you learn. We're going to tell you one more story after this, but just to say, when these people go out, the amateur ghost hunters or whatever, and they put out on Facebook, oh, we're going to exorcise demons tonight, and demon this and demon that and demon the other. We have encountered these things that can pull a ladder, that is a frightening vampire looking like circus monster creature that's chasing a 6-year-old boy who's giving a man a heart attack, who's killing his cat. Correct me if I'm wrong. When we were there doing the interview, one of those cats stood up on 2 legs.
And they said that it had never done that.
It killed these things.
Like it was looking at something that we couldn't see, and it just
and rearing up, and when they get real.
Yeah, and the cats, of course, were like early warning systems for these people. We always tell people, like, pay attention to your dogs, your cats. They know. They're great early, warning system. And these cats paid with their lives. So this was serious stuff. So we can tell you one more story if you have time.
We have time.
You want to talk about? You want to
I
set
don't
it
like
up?
talking about this.
You make me.
I always make you do this one because I honestly, it was just so freaky. I don't even like to talk about it. So
okay,
I'll let Joey tell.
This again. We like to tell this story for a couple different reasons. One, we don't encounter a lot of things that are dark or evil or demonic. These are all labels. We don't know, but there are things that want to do us harm, that feed on our fear, that like to create very much like Amityville Horror, like to create chaos, arguing. We lived in a haunted house where Tanya and I were fighting, and our roommate upstairs, we were all fighting, and that is a buffet for these things. So call them what you will, they do exist. So we get a phone call from a colleague, and things are just not going well in her life, not with her job. She can't get anything to stick. She can't get any traction. Everything she tries fails. Her relationships are not going well. She's having problems. She says, please, you guys, come out to my house for the weekend. Let's find out what the heck is going on. So we arrive late Friday around dinner time. We have a nice dinner. We just chit chat. It's a lovely woman, in her late 40s, and a professional woman, and have a couple of glasses of wine each over the course of a long evening and a nice meal. So no one's intoxicated, just a relaxing evening. And she says, let's go sit on the front porch. It'll be so nice. It'll be lovely. We said, okay, great. Let's do that. A little wind down and we'll all go to sleep. We've been on the road and these cars are going by. It's a fairly busy street. It's used as a cut through, whatever. And she gets real aggressive. She says, sometimes I just want to take a cinder block and throw it through the windshield of those cars. And when Tonya and I look at each other and go, she must really be in a bad place because this doesn't sound like our friend. So we kind of wrap it up. We're going inside. She says, hey, did you bring your dowsing rods? Yeah, we brought the dowsing rods. Let's take them out. Let's try to make contact. No. We're all tired. You seem a little agitated. We've had some wine. So all the indicators are we don't play. Tomorrow morning, we'll all get up, we'll have a nice breakfast, and then we'll get to work. We promise. So Tonya goes upstairs to the guest bedroom. The woman says, I'm gonna sleep on the couch because I don't even like to go to my upstairs bedroom. I say, well, I have emails and work and everything to catch up on. You set me up nice with the internet at the dining room table. I'll be right here, right in the next room. The rooms are like open. You can see each other. Right. I said, I'll be here for a couple hours before I go to bed. I'm clacking away. And she starts to moan a little, disturb, like maybe she's having a bad dream. Then it turns into like a witch cackle. I don't know how else to explain it. It's like a witch cackle. And all the hairs, frisson or whatever they call that, the French word for it, all the hairs going up on my body, the hackles are coming up. I kind of look over, her hair's in her face, which, she was sleeping. I don't think much about it. And starts again, the cackling. Then I hear her voice pleading, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will feel no evil, please, no. And the cackle comes. And this voice saying nasty things, not curses, but threats. And she's we're gonna have her. She's mine, whatever. It gets so loud that it wakes Tonya up from upstairs and she comes down. And for the next, I don't know, hour and a half to hour and 45 minutes, we had our whole kit with us. So we're burning incense, praying, lighting candles. She asked for a rosary and she's going back and forth. At one point, she turned her head away from the pillow and she's kind of moaning, laughing a little, the witch thing, whatever. We're praying, doing our thing, making tobacco, sage, rosemary, all these different things in our kit. She turns back and her eyes are a different color. Her eyes are a different color. We'll pray. And within, I guess, a couple of hours, it was gone. Wherever it was gone. It was gone. She remembers some of it. She remembered parts of it, not everything. The only thing that I can say is once you've encountered something like that, you don't make light of it. You don't go looking for it. Tonya and I never go, oh, goody, it's a dark entity. This ought to be fun, right? That case in the Great Plains that we had last year. You want to tell about what happened with the little boy, just briefly, in his room? His mom was downstairs.
Yeah, so we were working a case, and it was during the shutdown and everything. So, and also it was in Kansas, so there was no way that we were going to be able to get there, but we were able to do it all over video.
Yeah, Tonya did it all through remote viewing.
I do remote viewing. So long story short, one of the things that had happened in this home was this little boy, I don't know, 18 months old, 10 months old.
No more than 18 months old, maybe 16. Yeah, baby, a toddler.
So the husband worked nights. And really, it was the wife who was experiencing all of this activity. It was always late at night. The home was very isolated, out in the middle of nowhere. Come to find out, she was a battery herself. So she was really sort of energizing all of this activity. Wow. But it was terrifying her. She's home alone in the middle of nowhere with little tiny children. I think they had 3.
They have 2 little girls and probably 9 and 7.
Right.
The little boy was younger.
Right. 2 like elementary school.
Yeah, maybe younger, 8 and 6 kind of thing. And he's baby.
Anyway, she's home alone at night with these children and things would happen. Noises, particularly coming up from the basement. So one night in particular, all this noise is emanating from the basement. She's terrified. She opens the basement door and yells
in her frustration, like, stop it. No, she's cursing. She's doing all the things you're not supposed to do, but now she's had it. and she's frightened.
She's
So
afraid.
all etiquette goes out the window. She's a mama grizzly, right? As they say. Well, she hears her son screaming from the bedroom. She runs into the bedroom and he's got a bright red hand mark. He's standing up on his toddler bed. He's got a bright red hand mark across his face. Now, Tonya and I are talking. Tonya was going to kind of mentor her and coach her, help her get her white light up, protect. She never, over the course of months, she canceled. She just didn't want it.
She was
She's
so
too
afraid.
frightened.
She didn't even want to talk. Like the way I don't like to tell the story that Joey told. She didn't even want to talk about any of this with anyone. But
She
her
belonged to
husband.
the church, so maybe there was some resistance there. It was in Kansas, in a corner of Kansas, which had been a forced reservation where 5 tribes, several of which did not get along, cohabitated. So there were angry spirits there. The people come in. The ghost of the former owner, who was a Marine Corps, now that's going to tick the indigenous people off, having a member of the U.S. military, in the house. And so it's a complicated, complex kind of thing. But we're sitting there listening to this and going, we got on this journey for whatever reason. We didn't set out to be paranormal. And now a kid is getting slapped from the other side, and it's leaving a mark on his face. This is serious business. This is serious business. So that's what we like to say to people. It's like, yeah, what's on TV, that's entertainment. And no, it's entertainment.
Yeah.
But these things that we've discussed for the last 90 minutes or so they can kill your pets. They can give you a heart attack. They can give you cancer. We know of a researcher who was looking into these dark things, was warned off them, but by that time she had contracted a serious cancer. And because it's all energy, it's all vibration.
I try to tell people that.
So we try to share. Yes, they're interesting. Yes, they're a little spooky for Halloween and all, but you have to be so careful and respectful.
Portals were opening.
Yes.
Visitations whatever this is, this existence that we find ourselves in, we are getting close to finding out exactly what, who, where, and how.
Agreed. Agreed.
I don't know, but damn, time. Shoot. Oh my God. So tell me, what is next on your agenda?
Well, we're working on some new books and we're trying to help people with cases. We do our show every Thursday night, Into the Outer Realms, but we have been tracking. We've been tracking this case. It's interesting. There's some overlaps with your story, with the purple creature, with our beings. We're getting reports. I'm trying to think of where we go. Down in the Gulf since the hurricane.
Down in the Gulf.
Chicago.
Yep.
New Jersey. Pennsylvania, West Virginia. People are reporting these tall, thin, bioluminescent something that they're seeing. They're hearing weird, strange kind of things. Now, ufology isn't our main bailiwick, but some people came to us, and so we've taken this on. Okay. We went out into the field a couple hours from here in Ohio, probably about 3 weeks ago. Someone had reported some very strange markings in a soybean field. So it was a big soybean field, except for some reason overnight, it wasn't like a crop circle. Just everything had disappeared. All the ground was just arid dust.
Wow.
Yeah, probably 15 feet of the soybeans was just gone. And there were these weird prints. And we got a cast. We're having it analyzed. Okay, it doesn't look like a Bigfoot. It's only got 3 toes. We were talking about the 3.
Wow.
Why the 333? I don't know. It's pretty sizable. There were, I think, 4 or 5 of them. And they have a video that they shared with us. We're talking to some colleagues on some podcasts. and we're hoping in the next week or so to interview an astronomer from Princeton that's connected with NASA.
Oh
So
my God.
we're getting just well known enough, I think, that some doors are opening for access.
Wow. So you have to come back next week.
Next week?
Yes.
When?
Next Saturday night, the 30th.
Can we do that?
Sure.
Do you have it open?
Yeah.
Because I don't
11?
have any guests scheduled.
Yeah.
Same
I wanna hear
time?
more about, yes, I want to hear more about this. And this
All
time
right,
will be
okay.
live.
So let's
Yeah.
let's
Wow.
spend the next week trying to pull all this
Gather
together.
the data.
Our colleagues, if there's anybody out there listening that has heard tell of these things, they're tall, they're thin, the big head, the big eyes, but they have this yellow glow, which I've never heard anything, a yellowish green glow. Yeah, there's a weird photograph that was taken from Mars of this weird pod-like thing that there's some whisper it may have something to do with it. So
Whoa.
we'll do that.
Yeah,
we'll do our best to pull together.
Please come back so we can have like make this a part 2 or something, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
we
my
can
God.
We'll gather all the
yeah,
data,
we'll
all
gather the data.
reports.
I'll make sure to pick up, it's about an hour away, the cast is being
Okay.
analyzed. I can go this week and pick that up. Wow, let's do that. Yeah, let's do that.
That sounds good.
Good.
You know, I'll call you and let you know exactly what time you need to be here and stuff like that. But oh my God, I want to hear, because you guys have been fascinating. And I hope the listeners out there realize that they're not the only ones experiencing. And
Mhm.
it's okay to talk about it.
It
you
is.
know,
Yeah.
and if there is something that you don't know what it is, well, then there's Tonya and Joey, and I'll post their website and stuff in the chat afterwards, and get a hold of them, because
Yes, please.
there's some things out there.
Yes, no question.
It really is.
Oh, this is exciting.
Yeah.
All right, we'll put
This is
together as
great.
much as we can. Anybody out there listening, if you've heard anything about these things, contact Ramona and let her know.
Mhm.
And we'll see if we can try to puzzle this out a little together.
All right, you guys, thank you
so much.
Thank
on,
you.
and hopefully I will see you next Saturday.
Yes, we're looking forward
we'll
to
be
it.
there.
All right, listeners, good night, you guys.
Good night.